Hello and welcome to the Fiji House here at Florida International University. My name is Ashley O'Curley. I'm a graduate from the University of Alberta and was initiated into the fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta in January of 1990. I'm serving as the first house director of this magnificent facility located here at the 107th Avenue entrance to Florida International University. You know, one of the great things about this Fiji House, the southernmost Fiji House in all of Phi Gamma Delta, is its location. Not only are we located in a beautiful city, Miami, Florida, but also on this campus. Florida International University has a wonderful campus with many lakes and palm trees, of course. It's really quite gorgeous. And here, the prominence that the Fiji House has is just extraordinary. Coming into this university, you turn off of 107th Avenue or 8th Street. There are two main entrances to the university. The Fiji House is located at the 107th Avenue entrance. And as soon as you enter the big gates into the university, you look off to your left, and there's the Fiji House standing in all of its splendor. Right across the street from the Fiji House is located the President's Mansion. President Modesto A. Mudik was kind enough to create a Greek row right across the street from him. And the Fiji House is the first of what will be 5 Greek houses here on Fraternity Row. So come on inside and let's have a comprehensive look at all of the features and the wonder of this incredible facility, arguably the most extravagant fraternity house built anywhere in the United States or Canada in the last 10 to 15 years. So come on in.
I'm Dan, the foreman, as I was known during this project.
The foreman was his last name.
Yeah.
Dan the foreman was a universally applied title to Mr. Dan Cephalo here, the foreman on our project of building this house. And so we'd like Dan to take us through the house now, show us all the features of it, and to let us know some of what it was like on a day-to-day basis of taking this house from an idea in Kirk Landon's head to making it into the beautiful structure that you see before you. So take it away, Dan. Show us the house.
Well, let's see. Project was started back in first week of November of last year. We started by, this was all a lake. The school had put in a road behind you, and we had to come in and basically raise this entire site high enough so we could build to a point where you guys wouldn't be flooded every time it rained.
We're actually at one of the highest points on campus right
Yes,
now.
we are. We are considered one of the highest points. The start of construction was right after a large rainstorm, and the President's House had water at its door. And so the school had decided that we were going to go a foot higher than the President's House just in case, so these guys would stay nice and dry. So what we're standing on is imported rock that comes from out near the Everglades, and we raised the site about 7 feet to start construction. So let's go on in.
We're standing here at the east door, the east entrance of the Fiji House, and Dan's going to take us through what one of the 17 rooms in the Fiji House look like. We have 17 suites that look exactly like this, including one handicap room and one house director suite as well. So Dan, if you show us one of the rooms here.
Okay. Starting on the first floor out here, we've got this is one of the standard 2-man suites, packed with furniture of course, but still a 2-man suite. The 2-man suites were designed by Kirk Landon, some consultation through David Morton and Associates, the architect here. And basically the theory was try and make them as indestructible as possible and also make them as plain as possible. As you can see, the walls are somewhat stark. They do have a window, but we did everything with solid concrete construction in here to avoid too much damage after we left when we finished this project. If we step back a little bit, each room has closets, 2 sets of closets for the guys, and then each room also shares a bathroom with the next suite.
The furniture in these bedrooms are actually modular, so that you can set up these beds in different ways. So if you notice in the first room they had 2 desks and 2 beds. Here you can have the desks actually underneath the beds. And we designed that so that the members could basically design their rooms however they felt was appropriate. And Dan, you said that the walls were concrete. This is actually this block which has drywall laminated to it, is that correct?
Yes. What we did in here, standard construction would be what would be called typical framing, where you would use metal and then you would apply drywall on top of it. The fear was that with a bunch of 18 to 20-year-old guys living in here, someone was going to end up in the next suite and not using a door. So they went with solid concrete construction. What that means is this entire room, ceiling, floors, all of the walls are solid concrete. And then we've just applied drywall over it so it looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But basically each one is its own little concrete bunker. The windows are impact glass, rated for a South Florida hurricane up to a Category 4. And that's about it.
How do they test those windows?
They fire a 2x4 out of an air cannon. And as long as the 2x4 doesn't go through, they measure the mile per hour that it was traveling, and that's how they rate them. So these were rated for 125 miles an hour.
So it's not only a house, it's a Fiji bomb shelter.
Yes, exactly. A couple small facts about the two-man suites. One is for energy efficiency. They decided to go with individual air conditioning units for each two-man suite. These guys are able to set their own temperature, so you don't have to base the entire house on whether the guys like it warm or cold in the rooms. It really makes a big difference, I think, as far as the overall climate of the place. It also allows them a lot more freedom between the guys. They have their own water heaters. There's no mass water heater that's taking care of this whole place. Each set of guys are taken care of by themselves. The door frames are filled with solid concrete, which came about because of a house that was looked at in Central Florida in which the doors were falling out of the walls. So we filled these with concrete to avoid anyone throwing a door through the hallway. So they are truly tanks. Anyway, we're going to go on into the kitchen here. This is their industrial kitchen. We had a professional kitchen designer come in and put this together for us. Basically, it's to allow for not necessarily who's living in here today, but for the future. The premise was that this being the first fraternity house on campus, they wanted to be able to bring in other parties, whether it's sororities, other fraternities, and give them a facility that they could hold an event without being as formal as going to the president's house or doing something else on campus that would restrict them somewhat. It gave them a little bit more freedom. It also gives the school the impression that, you know, these guys are setting the standard for the rest of the campus. Industrial, all stainless steel. They've got a 6-burner stove here. They've got ovens, deep fryers.
This house has a fire suppression system that can pretty much extinguish the sun, so why don't we go on learn about how that all works.
The architect as well as the engineers were seriously concerned about a whole bunch of guys having a whole bunch of access to things that could burn the place down. So not only did they put a regular fire system in here, as well as a fire alarm, there's also a secondary fire suppression system under the hood that I've informed the guys not to cook anything for longer than 10 minutes because just cooking alone will trigger this thing. So
you have to have the hood on. Right?
You have to have the vent on for the hood to make sure you don't trigger the fire suppression system. Anyway, this is the kitchen area. They have a secondary dishwashing area through here. As in any commercial kitchen, they did separate the two, the food prep from the dishwashing area, and then a full pantry area that is behind you.
The water comes in here, right? The fire sprinkler?
Yes. The fire sprinkler main as well as the water main for the building both come in through the pantry, and then they feed through the rest of the house.
Set up the dining rooms over here.
This is the dining room slash study slash
multi-purpose room.
Yes.
We have our meetings in here. We have our social events here, and we also have a bit of a games room here as well. We have a foosball table that has been donated by one of our graduate brothers from Florida State. We also have a pool table that was donated to us by the North Campus of FIU as well.
Once again, I mean, this room is basically designed for them to do pretty much everything. The house deferred as to not put in any type of private meeting room. They decided that this would be more useful for this application of a house, just having a general purpose room. And so that's why everything is somewhat put into one area. Apologizing for the noise, it is a fraternity house that is a living, breathing fraternity house. This is their entertainment room, living room, according to the plans, the library. The people in charge, Ron Sheffield, Kirk Landon, etc., they felt that this room was best suited for entertainment purposes as well. So that way when they would have smaller gatherings, they were able to do things here, as well as I think it serves a good purpose for bringing in future Fijis. It's kind of a warmer room where you can do smaller events, but that was the whole premise behind this space.
This foyer here is all marble?
Yes, they decided to go with a solid marble foyer, basically for durability. Can't kill stone or bend iron. At least fraternity brothers can try, but they may not. This is their main foyer. This is the main entrance, faces the President's house and 16th, which is, as part of the master plan for the school, will become the main thoroughfare through campus. It'll lead you straight to Graham Center and the 2 new parking garages. Coming in, there's still obviously a chandelier that's not present, but this foyer is here just as a grand statement for the house. This is the main corridor. You've seen us in here a few times. Basically, there's a carbon copy of this upstairs that we will see. It leads into the kitchen areas, the 2-man suites, as well as the elevator, the foyer, the main dining room, multi-purpose room, and Ashley's room, which is at the end of the hall. To either side of you are the 2 main air conditioning units that take care of the general areas of the building. 10-ton unit to this side right here, and then you've got a smaller 7-ton unit that takes care of the library area right over there, as well as this hallway. In here is Ashley's room. It's the house director's room. Ashley.
House director's suite, where you have, in addition to a single bedroom in the back, we also have a living area out front as well.
You know, we do have an elevator in this place. This is the 2nd floor. This is where a majority of the living quarters are.
13 bedrooms, just like we saw downstairs, including 1 office, the handicap suite.
This is a fact that all the brothers seem to enjoy. What we're standing on is, we did 1 concrete pour out here that was just over 1 million pounds of concrete that day. So in one day, we added 1 million pounds of concrete to this structure. And we have yet another floor above us that we did a similar feat to. So there is a considerable amount of concrete in this structure, so much so that the school has made this one of the structures that is an alternate in case there's a major hurricane coming through the Keys. This is one of the storm shelters on campus. So in case the others do overflow, they're able to stay at a fraternity house. And it is because of things like the 1 million pounds of concrete we're standing on right now. Do we want to glance at any of these rooms, or?
They're all basically the same as the rooms that we saw downstairs, but there might be one that's open here that is being occupied. I don't know how safe it is, but this is more or less what the room looks like when it's occupied.
You turn the
We have
lights.
two
Turn the
brothers
lights over
living
there.
here.
Can you turn the lights?
Yeah, this is Dave and Dan's room, currently.
I like the chart.
This is fraternity house living.
And you can't smell on camera, but
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we were talking about that the other day, whose smell it was, and they determined it was a combined smell. They were contributing to the smell together.
each room is set up with high-speed internet connections, as well as cable and telephone. So the guys are pretty well set up. The school brought a fiber optic cable from the PC building, which is the main hub on campus, and it feeds through this house, and this house actually serves as the jump-off point for the future Greek homes whenever they do get built. So this is somewhat of the an auxiliary hub for Greek housing in the future. This is the main communication hub of this house. Fire alarm panels, telecommunications, as well as cable, high-speed network, fiber optics, and a jump-off point, like I said prior, to the rest of the future Greek homes. They will be using this room to feed those areas in the future. This is the laundry facility. There was much debate about whether or not the guys should pay for their own laundry to be done, and the solution was to just bring in regular washing machines and go by the honor system. They really are pretty well set up here.
Yeah, we do permit those brothers who don't live in the house to use the laundry facilities, but kind of like Dan said, on an honor system, the brothers who do live in the house have priority for these, but we do allow all of our members to use them as well.
And Dan the foreman!
Okay, go.
When the house was just starting to be constructed, I was a name and a recruit in the fraternity. I stepped in here, and as the house kept on growing, I kept on growing to now where I've been the chairperson for Rush, and I become a brother in the fraternity. But just the way the concrete was laid and the fraternity has a strong foundation, it's also cemented a lot of the foundation that most of the brothers here have had with one another. But also, Ashley, it's what I see is that it also speaks volumes of what FIU has done. FIU was just one building in a reformed airport, and now look at it. This fraternity house has changed the landscape and turned FIU into what was once a commuter school into now a blossoming state university, which is trying to cater towards a new community, and doing so by giving Phi Gamma Delta the opportunity to build the first house on campus. Well, it involves the student community because right now there's 30,000 kids in FIU, about 900 of them are in Greek organizations. Now that's less, or somewhere near percent. I'm not a math major, I'm guessing. But when that small a community, it shows that, look, these guys are trying to make an impact. And Phi Gamma Delta took the first step by saying, we're going to put a house on campus, and we want to show you that we're not doing this just for the Greeks. We're not doing this just for Phi Gamma Delta, but we're doing this because of the pride we have in Florida International University. I think it's going to show students that maybe there's more to coming here than just going to class and getting out. Maybe there's more to college than, you know, just getting my credits, going to Gracie's, messing around, or not doing anything. I think it helps provide a focus in student life.
Well, Ron, you graduated from the University of Tennessee in 1973, and you joined Phi Gamma Delta a few years before then, and here we are, 2001, and about 5 years ago, it's been a 5-year project for you. 5 years ago, you first started getting back involved in Phi Gamma Delta again, and now here we are today with the opening of this brand new house here. And we'd just like to know, over the last 5 years, and particularly over the last couple of years, when the house is really, when you've really been involved as the president of the Housing Corporation, what are some of the developments? What are the things? What did it take to get us to this point over the last couple of years?
Of course, the first thing that comes to mind actually is Kirk Landon, and his name will be forever present here in the house. Without Kirk's vision and without his steadfast commitment and, of course, his financial resources, this house would not be here today. And, of course, generations of students now, young men in Phi Gamma Delta will benefit from his generosity. 30 years ago, when I was a pledge, I never dreamed that I would be involved this many years later in building a fraternity house, especially in Miami, Florida, because at that time I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and didn't know that I would end up in Miami at that time. I moved to Miami in 1975, and it's been fun just to watch university grow. FIU, of course, began about the time I moved here, and it was a very young university at the time, and to see what Mitch Medic, current president today, has been able to do here in the last decade, actually about 15 years I guess he's been here, it's phenomenal, the full university that he's built. And of course the fraternity system was part of his vision as well. So Kirk Landon and Mitch Medic were friends, and we used to have lunches about every other month with our alumni group, and all of us were from places all around the country. And of course, Kirk Landon from Georgia Tech, and I was a graduate of Tennessee, and Pete Dunn from Virginia, and a lot of other guys that were instrumental in those early days. Phil Queso, the secretary back then, are still working with our graduate chapter from NYU, and many others who put in a lot of early time in those early days. And when we started talking about just forming an undergraduate or a graduate chapter, no one really ever thought about forming a graduate chapter except Kirk Landon. And then Kirk, one day at a lunch meeting, he says, "I think we should start a chapter out at FIU. I'll talk to my friend Mitch Medique, and I'll talk to the international fraternity and get that working." Well, we all left the lunch that day thinking, well, this will never happen. And of course, it wasn't but a few months later, probably even as short as 2 or 3 months later, Kirk came back and said, "Okay, I've gotten the approval from our international fraternity. Mitch Medique says he thinks it's a great idea, so let's start a colony." So that started, and of course, that early group of young men, we had the first rush party at my house. And
a few more since.
Yeah, a few more since, that's true. But we knew immediately that we were attracting a very high caliber of student here on campus, and we had a lot of help from the administration in the beginning to kind of handpick some of those early leaders that we had. Lester Garcia, I think, was the very first pledge that we had in the chapter. And then about 6 months later, I guess, as we saw the colony beginning to form, Kirk said, "Well, you know, if we're going to have a fraternity on campus, we need to have a fraternity house for these guys to live in." And then we all said, "Well, Kirk, you really have gone too far. I mean, the chances of us building a fraternity house today and with the expense of building a house is probably not something doable." I'm in the real estate business, as you know, and Kirk said, "Sheffield," he said, "you work us up some numbers and come back to the next meeting. Tell us how much it would cost to build a house." So I worked up those numbers and came back to the next meeting, and I said, "Well, guys, about all that we can finance and have the students pay dorm rent would be about $850,000. And in addition to that, we're going to need about another $1,300,000 to build this house." And I'll never forget Kirk's words. Kirk says, "$1 million?" He said, "That's a half a day on the market." And so Kirk was so generous to actually write that check for $1,300,000 to make this house a reality. And of course, there were a lot of steps after that. The original location that the university had chosen for Fraternity Park was over in front of the stadium. And there was some sort of endangered owl that lived over in the weeds there. And so the university found that environmentally they couldn't develop that property at that time. Since then, I think they've relocated the owl, and so they'll probably develop something there soon. But after looking at that site for about a year, we moved over to the north end of the campus, over near A Street, and there was a discussion about putting Fraternity Park over there. For whatever reasons, it didn't seem to work there. And then at this current location, of course, was the third site that the university started looking at. The 16th Street was only installed about a year ago, which means sometime in the summer of the year 2000, the street was carved in here off of 107th Avenue and really began then to develop the southeast part of the campus. So there were 5 lots, and we all got together with the other fraternities one night, and the planners at the university said, "Well, here are the choices." And the people who were able to make that first commitment got to choose first. We actually were the second fraternity to be able to choose our location. But I believe it's ended up that we've gotten the best spot right here on the circle, and the orientation of the house facing right across from the president's home, and being it really a major entrance to the university has really given Phi Gamma Delta a lot of visibility. And of course, the construction period of the house was very smooth. We had an excellent contractor. Jonathan Andrew Construction built the house. Dan Cephalo was the superintendent on the job, and became almost like one of the brothers here. Was very supportive of all of our questions and all of the guys that would come by to check the progress each day. We started construction in October of 2000. Finished construction in August of 2001, moved into the house September 12th of 2001, which of course will be a date that people will be able to remember for the rest of history because of the events of September the 11th. The fraternity, you joined us of course in February of this year, 2001, and have been instrumental in helping us build the brotherhood and build the membership. And we're still in the process of doing that. I guess we have right now about 55 young men that are part of the chapter, and look forward to that being probably upwards to 100 here soon. Construction, I guess, was something that was really enjoyable. A lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of early mornings coming out here before going to the office, a lot of late nights leaving the office at dark and coming out here and poking around with flashlights and talking with the contractor, emailing back and forth, and all the different color selections. Certainly want to mention the two architects that played such an instrumental role too. We had two brothers, Roy Smith and David Morton, Texas Tech, and David Morton from Illinois. And Roy was really more the designer of the building, and then David carried out the details of the plans, coordinated the construction, was here with us during the whole construction period. The two of them worked beautifully together to create what we have today. So it's kind of unique that within our group we had developer, architects, we have a lawyer that helped us tremendously. Jed Frankel was loud car there. Jed Frankel was our attorney, who is a graduate of the University of Florida, handled all the legal side of things. Phil Queso helped us with some of the financing. He's with Merrill Lynch, and so it just seemed like that all these guys were kind of hand-picked for the different roles that we had. But again, none of this would have been possible without Kirk Landon, and not just his money, but his spirit and just inspiration through the whole process, and that continues. Kirk this week is touring Antarctica. As he's retired now, he's been traveling the world, been to about every spot in the world that I can think in the last 5 years. But a trip to Antarctica I thought was kind of unusual, so he's up there this week and will be back next week. But we feel like that the Greek system is going to take also a new tone on the FIU campus. Greeks have been on this campus for quite a few years, but I think with the introduction of fraternity living on campus, and we're looking forward to our 4 other fraternity houses being built here and having the brotherhood develop in those houses, because that will help us to build an even stronger Greek system here. And we're anxiously awaiting them to pull their funds together and be able to build too.
Well, Ron, as we know, this house, the Fiji House here at FIU, is an alcohol-free house, Phi Gamma Delta instituting alcohol-free housing in 1998. How instrumental do you think that was in number one, having Kirk Landon come forward as much as he did, and also how instrumental do you think it's been in your involvement and in the participation of the university in this whole project?
Well, I think in all 3 cases, it's been critical. Fraternities, of course, been around for years. I mean, our fraternity has been around for over 150 years now. And I know in the years that I was in my chapter at Tennessee, you know, I saw the devastation in many cases that alcohol could bring in the life of a fraternity member or a fraternity at large. Fortunately, the Fijis at Tennessee did not have to suffer that, but we have had Fijis that have suffered that through the country. I'm not a drinker, as everybody here knows, and you know, as being a Phi Gamma at Tennessee, which is this year the #1 party school in the country, it seems a little unusual that I would have had such a solid fraternity experience at Tennessee, you know, not participating to the degree that a lot of the campus does. But I think that the draw for me was that I saw that the kids that were here were committed to their academics, they were committed to each other, they were committed to building their lives and shaping themselves from a leadership standpoint. And I think that Kirk certainly had those same feelings. He's expressed that many times at big dinner speeches and different places. And the university has been very impressed with that. One of the things that I've been pleased to see is that the media has really picked up on that. And of course, as we've told our young guys here, they are really they're being scrutinized by a lot of people. When you make that kind of a bold statement, you have to stand behind it. And I think that our chapter here will be able to take this beginning as an alcohol-free house and really build upon that. And immediately and in the years to come, they'll be known not only for that, but just for the stability of the kids and the fact that the kids here are a lot more mature than fraternities have historically been known for.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the reasons why the administration here at FIU has been so supportive of us as Fijis and as Greeks in the value that we add to the education, the formal education of the students here at FIU, and also to the broader social education, if you will, of the members that we bring in. Mm-hmm. The house contributing to that, the alcohol-free environment contributing to that as well. One of the things that we learn about right as soon as we pledge into Phi Gamma Delta is that Phi Gamma Delta is not for college days alone. It's one of the first things that we learn in pledge class. And here with the Delta Colony at FIU, you have been probably the most prominent example of that. I mean, you come into the house here, all the brothers recognize you, they all know you. Even if they haven't met you yet, they learn about you in pledge class. What continues to push you to exemplify that ideal of not for college days alone?
Well, I look back at the years I was in my chapter, and I was an officer in my chapter, and when I look back at the alumni that supported us when I was in school, you know, I'm more appreciative today of those people than I was when I was there, because I realized the commitment that they made to provide an opportunity for us. You know, there was a lot of structure there, which you know, we've tried to work with the young men here to provide that structure, taking the more mature members and helping them to lead some of the younger, maybe less mature members. And that's what's fun about this age bracket, because people are maturing, they're developing their skills for going into the workplace, and there's just their social skills. And I think that when you say not for college days alone, you're reminded every time I come here that the fraternity had a lot to do with molding me as a person, helping me build you know, business qualities and leadership qualities. And I think that what those people did for me, I can hopefully help provide an opportunity for people to have the same experience in their college days. Plus, I've had my college roommate, Lee Moss, lives in Murfreesboro, Tennessee today.
Former Archon president.
And he was the president of the Archons, and I think that he was an inspiration to me, because I saw that he continued working in the fraternity, and it gave him great satisfaction. Of course, he gave a lot of years of leadership and time to continue building the fraternity. He was there at the ecclesia when we voted on the non-alcoholic houses and non-alcoholic
He was the chair of that ecclesia.
He was, and you know, I got to attend that ecclesia in Pittsburgh, and that'll be a memory that I'll always cherish, and being part of something that really is, I believe, going to change the course not only of our fraternity but of all fraternities nationwide.
What is it that you, when you come back to the house here, like I said, you know, the brothers recognize you, what does it feel like for you to come back into the house after all of this work? I mean, for so many years, it must have felt kind of lonely, you know, trying to put together all these numbers and take this project from an idea in Kirk Landon's head to actually make it a reality. And now that it is a reality, what does it feel like to step into this house and to see all these brothers here?
Well, I tell you, it makes me feel a whole lot like when I was their age. You know, I walked up to the steps here a minute ago, and you know, kids were out front, you know, eating their Burger King sandwiches, and you know, some of the girls would come over after class, and they were just having a good time. As of course, the fall of the year in Florida is a great time anyway. The nice cool breezes outside, and you just see the spirit of what's happening here, the friendships that are being built. So it does remind me a lot of just being 18, 19 years old again. But there was a period there when we didn't have brothers yet. We were just beginning to pledge. We had a house that was starting, but it was a very it was a time that you felt like, will this ever come together? Will the construction ever be complete? Will we ever fill it with kids that really are living here and enjoying the house like we had hoped they would? And now to walk back into the house and see them, you know, having dinners here, having parties here, just, you know, having friends over, it's very gratifying.
Just take a box of quiches out. I'll put the rest of it in the refrigerator.
Gene, do you have any clues for him, or?
I have raisins.
Here you go.
So dinner will be, here's some.
I gotta keep this.
I was initiated into the fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta in January of 1990 at the Epsilon Alpha chapter in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And here we are, fast forward about 12 years, and I'm now the graduate advisor, serving as the graduate advisor for the Fijis here at Florida International University. I also have the distinct pleasure of being the first house director of this magnificent facility that you see before you, and of being your master of ceremonies this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this newest development of the University Park campus of Florida International University. Welcome to this next step in the evolution of FIU's student community. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the FIJI House. First off, we're a little late getting started, and we have a number of people that we have as speakers, a number of people that we want to recognize, a number of presentations we'd like to make. So we're going to move through this program as quickly as we can, and believe me, your Master of Ceremonies is a Canadian citizen, and he's currently standing outside away from the air conditioning in a suit. So trust me when I say we're going to move through this program as quickly as possible. First off, I would like to invite to the podium one of our undergraduate brothers, Mr. Casper Machado, to give an invocation.
It's a little shorter than Ashley. First, I'd like to welcome you guys, family, relatives, brothers, and invited guests. My name is Casper Machado. I'm an undergraduate here. I'm interior design major, double major with art education. So I plan on being here a while. I am very involved on campus, but that's not what I'm going to talk to you about here. What I want to talk to you about quickly, I am kind of a little nervous. This is a very exciting day for all of us. So forgive me for being just a little nervous. What I wanted to start off with was a little quote that I read. It says, "To have a good friend is one of the highest delights of life. To be a good friend is one of the noblest and most difficult undertakings." And that's from 1 Timothy 1:5. And that quote means a lot to me, because this fraternity is more than just friends, more than just brothers. They're what complete me. They're people that are there for me all the time. I'm looking forward to this house experience. But right now, I'd like to formally ask you guys to please bow your heads and close your eyes really quick for a short prayer, so we may invite God and into this household, and He may bless everyone that goes into it, that sleeps, that dwells within it, and that He may be there present at all times, watching over us and guiding us. Thank you, Lord. Amen. Thank you again.
Thank you, Casper. And now for a few words of welcome, I would like to welcome to the podium the undergraduate president of the Fijis here at FIU, from the class of 2002 at FIU, Mr. Gabriel Carrillo.
Again, welcome to the Fiji House. While standing in front of this house, you can ask yourself, what do the brothers of this fraternity think? What's going through their mind? What are their expressions? There are three expressions running through the brothers at this point. The one you'll see most often is joy. Second to that is thanks. That's usually expressed to the graduates in a more intimate setting. And finally, responsibility, which is, of course, the most important. We're joyful at having a house, not just a house, the first house. We know that this is a big undertaking, a big responsibility. We know that this is the hallmark for fraternal life at FIU, and we're happy. But we're thankful of many people. The FIU Greeks. I know that they're happy for our accomplishment, and we'll be happy for their accomplishment when they get to this point. The FIU administration. Not only do they allow us to build a house on campus, not only do they further the cause of student life, but they do this with open arms and a smile, something very rare in the college environment in today's age. We thank the Housing Corporation, the work of Ron Shuffield, Pete Dunn, Roy Smith, Dave Morton, and the countless other brothers, graduates, who have been in this fraternity for much longer than I have, who have been working hard far past their graduate days and into their jobs, working till 10 o'clock at night, even later. We thank the international headquarters for their never-ending support of this colony and of this house. And finally, we thank Kirk Landon for everything he's done, but most importantly, for the support that he has given us from day one of this colony. In celebrating this house, we're not celebrating it, we're celebrating him. But the most important expression that we have is responsibility. One of our brothers said it best very recently. You can give a 16-year-old a car, and he'll race it around and he'll show it off. We've been given a sports car, except this is a much more expensive sports car. It has much more responsibilities, infinitely more responsibilities than a sports car does. but then again, it has infinitely more possibilities. Again, welcome to the Phi Gamma Delta House at FIU.
Gabe touched on it, at the number of graduates that it took to really make this happen. And we would like to, there are a few of them in the audience tonight that we would like to recognize. First of all, are the two architects who were principally responsible for creating this magnificent structure. If Roy Smith from our Texas Tech chapter, class of '59, and David Morton from our Illinois chapter, class of '54, could come up to the podium, please. We have a small presentation to make to them.
Thank you very much. Terrific. Wonderful work. Good help. Thank you.
Also, some of the brothers, also some of the brothers who were very active in the Graduate Association and really bringing together all of these brothers from all these different chapters all across Canada and the United States and bringing them into a cohesive whole into our graduate chapter to support the undergraduates here at FIU. Our first graduate president was from our Virginia chapter, class of 1980, Mr. Peter Dunn. Our first secretary of the Graduate Association was from our NYU chapter, Mr. Phil Queso. And is John here?
I don't think John.
No? From our Auburn chapter, our treasurer from the beginning and our treasurer today is John Wallace. Also we have today, who drove down from Jacksonville, our section chief. He looks after all of the chapters in all of Florida, as a matter of fact. He's from our Miami University up in Oxford, Ohio, Mr. Brooks Andrews. And now to say a few words on behalf of the International Fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta, I'd like to welcome to the podium from our Wittenberg chapter, class of '71, Mr. Jack Perozzi. Jack is an associate director of the Phi Gamma Delta Educational Foundation, which is a charitable foundation set up specifically for the purpose of supporting financially the academics of undergraduate and graduate students who are members of Phi Gamma Delta. So, Jack.
Thank you, Ashley. I am so incredibly proud and honored to be here with you this afternoon. This is truly a momentous occasion, an occasion in which we should all rejoice, an occasion that we should take great pride in. We owe a great deal of debt of thanks and appreciation to Brother Kirk Landon for all that he has done in his leadership and his support. And the fact that we have this magnificent facility and this showplace location with the support of the administration is truly a wonderful situation. As tremendous as this occasion is, it really mirrors the strength of our fraternity in a national and international way. We currently have 114 chapters throughout the United States and in several foreign countries. We have 5 colonies. We have 150,000 men who have been initiated as our brothers since 1848. We currently have 90,000 living brothers. And we currently have 7,400 undergraduate brothers. We are one of 2 top fraternities in the country where the percent of chapters with a GPA average is over that of the averages on those chapters. Over 70% of our chapters have higher grade point accums than the average. All of which is to say to you, particularly as undergraduates, there's a fine tradition here and a great amount of responsibility, and we know that you are up to both the tradition and to the responsibility. Finally, I'd like to elaborate for just a moment on my role with the foundation because it impacts on all of you. As Ashley indicated to you, I'm with the Education Foundation. The only purpose of the Education Foundation, the only reason why we exist, is to support the fraternity. The only reason the International Fraternity exists is to support you. In conjunction with the fraternity, the foundation has accepted the 5 challenges that the fraternity has said we need to achieve if we are to continue and grow in our strength. The first goal that we are working on together is a goal of education. And under education falls the banner of alcohol awareness and substance abuse. Our second goal is the goal of scholarship. And there are 2 parts to scholarship. Eventually, we hope to have an endowed scholarship for every undergraduate chapter handled through the foundation. And the reason why we'd like it to come through the foundation is because there's a continuity there. As chapter fortunes rise and fall, and unfortunately, sometimes they do, the foundation, the fraternity is always there. The second part of scholarship is the Academic Achievement Awards, known as the AAA. The Academic Achievement Awards will give a $250 stipend to any of our undergraduate brothers who are pledged, maintain a 3.0 ACUM, and are in good academic and social standing. It's a very important part of our program, and last year the foundation, through the fraternity, granted $160,000 worth of support for these young men. Our third goal is the goal of establishing a leadership institute. We are now under negotiation with the University of Richmond to offer to 25 of our brothers an opportunity at the Jepson Institute to have a leadership experience. We're very excited about this, and we feel this is going to make a big impact on both the Rush programming and the programming for our brothers. The fourth goal that we are working on is a goal of technology. And the goal of technology is to connect our undergraduate brothers with headquarters, and then to expand that to our brothers, our graduate brothers who want the opportunity for technological connection. And finally, our fifth goal is to expand our field secretaries program from the 3 that we currently have to 5. We need to be able to expand that program so that we can keep a better watch on all of our undergraduate chapters and make sure that everybody is doing what they should be doing and growing in the fine Phi Gamma Delta tradition. So in conclusion, I want to say to you that not only is this a momentous occasion, is this a celebratory opportunity for all of us, but tonight especially, I am proud to be a Fiji. Thank you.
Is Wilson Smith in the audience? Florida class of 49. No, not here today. Well, we would like to recognize Brother Smith as well for his contributions to the fraternity. It's unfortunate that he couldn't be here tonight. The next brother that I'd like to bring to the podium really needs no introduction in the Phi Gamma Delta world, at least around here in Miami. Everybody knows him among us Fijis, and he's really been a force of nature, I suppose you could say. I don't think there's any brother in terms of the number of hours that poured into this place that he has taken time out of his schedule, time away from his family, and so I guess in thanking him, we're also really thanking Anita and Melissa and Scott as well, because we've stolen far too much time away from him over the last year building this house, and we hope that now that it's completed that you'll have him back some more. But we'd really like to thank Mr. Ron Sheffield from our Tennessee chapter. Now, Ron always says, I don't want any kind of presentation. I don't want any big kind of introduction or anything. Well, Ron, for once, we're not going to listen to you. We have here from the Archons, the Board of Archons of the Fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta. The Archons are like the Board of Directors of the entire international fraternity. We have a certificate of appreciation awarded to Ron Sheffield, Tennessee Class of 73, by the Board of Archons of the Fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta in recognition of the outstanding service provided to our fraternity. And so please.
Thank you.
Accept this, Ron.
Thank you.
Now, I've had a lot of my friends over the last 2 years say, why in the world are you building a fraternity house out there? And I have to tell you that 32 years ago this week, I pledged Phi Gamma Delta fraternity at the University of Tennessee. And I was privileged to move into a brand new house on that campus because a lot of guys in their 50s put their hard work into making it possible for me. So it certainly had a great impact on my college experience in the 4 years that I was at the University of Tennessee. And the second reason that I've continued along is because I've made a lot of new friends. We got 45 young guys here that are some of the most responsible, mature, just honest to goodness, hardworking, good to the heart people. And I've really enjoyed getting to know them, and it's expanded my family with all this group that's here today. I probably didn't know more than 3 or 4 of you before I started this process a couple of years ago. But it's taken a lot more than just a couple of us to do this, and in particular, we had to have the money to do it. You're going to hear in a little bit about recognition of our biggest benefactor and biggest supporter, Kirk Landon, but we also needed some financial support from our banks. And SunTrust Bank actually helped us provide an opportunity to build this house, and they will be providing opportunities for the other people to build their houses, the other fraternities. Kimry Newland, Kimry, are you up front or where are you? Kimry Newland, come on up here. I've got something I want to give you too. Kimry is an officer with SunTrust Bank. And Kimry was patient with us as we traveled this process for about two to 3 years, and it's because of his tenacity that we were able to structure the financing for this house and for the other 4 houses that will be built here. So Kimry, I want to thank you. It's been fun getting to know you too, and I look forward to you being on campus here with us for a lot more years. So thank you again.
Thank you.
We have probably been able to touch just about every department at the university, and every turn of the road they have just given us unbelievable support. One of the first people that we began to deal with when we started construction of the house was a gentleman who is responsible, I think, Tony, for all this construction we see out here. Is that correct? Now you talk about a man who works a long day, responsible for all the construction projects on the FIU campus. And Tony was instrumental in helping us design the house, actually finding the piece of property that this is sitting on today, the structuring of the roads out in front. All of those details came through his office, and he has been supportive every week to come and help us as we built the house. And that's Tony Ayala. So Tony, please come up here. I want to give you one of our mementos too. And I tell you, the 2 guys that did not know what they were getting into when they signed the construction agreement with us to build this house were Jonathan Andrew Construction, and the 2 gentlemen from Jonathan Andrew that I would like to come up now at this time is John McHenry and Dan Cephalo. John McHenry, this first gentleman here, is the president of Jonathan Andrew Construction, and they are responsible for building this house from ground up. Dan Cephalo has his daughter over here. She's been sweating on his shirt, he says. But Dan has been out here. You can pick any hour on the 24-hour clock, and he has been on this property. Some mornings here at 3 and 4 in the morning because that's what it took to get things finished with electricians, with plumbers, different people. These 2 gentlemen, I would like to say almost single-handedly, but they brought in their support from their company and other subcontractors as well. But they are the reason that this house is here. So to both of you, I want to give one of our, these are our silver stars, which is very important to our fraternity. We'll get to see these as y'all open these here tonight. And in addition, for Dan, we have something else. Dan has really become like one of the brothers around here. He's not a whole lot older than the rest of us, or the rest of them. But Dan, for you, our brothers got together, and we wanted to give you and your wife a cruise to the Caribbean. So for you, we'll work out the details later. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again so much. Okay, the next person, though, is really where all this started, and that's the guy who's going to live across the street. We have a new neighbor who is going to be moving in soon as well. We're going to beat him in just by a few days here. Mitch Medique has been at the university now. Mitch, how many years have you been out here now? 15 years. And without Mitch's vision of saying, we need Greeks on this campus, we need to have that kind of spirit on our campus, we need to have football teams, we need to have these other things to bring a 24-hour student life to this campus, we would not be here today. So we are so proud and privileged that Mitch could find time today to be over here with us, and we look forward to being his neighbor. We've teased him already about living across the street from a fraternity house, but we're starting a new neighborhood here, and our number one neighbor is none other than Mitch Medique. So Mitch, please come up. We'd want to hear a few words from you.
I was so glad that Casper talked about the book of Job. And as you know, one of the things that the book says is that it's a blessing to be a friend, and it's an even greater, rather, it's a blessing to have a friend. It's an even greater blessing to be a friend. Well, let me talk to you about Luke 11.2. That says it's an even greater blessing to be a good neighbor. Because you see, one of the things that you do when you move into an area, what do? Many of you haven't bought houses yet, but I'll tell you, one of the things you do is you drive around and you meet the neighbors. You knock on their door and you say, hi, what's life like here? You know, and when I came here looking at the neighborhood, there was nothing here. So during the time that we've been building the house, this house just rapidly, thanks to the efforts of Ron and the architects, the builders, the generosity of Kirk, has popped up before we finished our house. So first of all, I understood from one of you, I don't know if it was in an official capacity, that I would be invited to any and all the parties here. I was told. By the way, I want you to know there's no hard liquor at the president's home either, so if you're looking for that, if I invite you over there, you know, you're not going to find that, that either. So I'm looking forward to establishing a new tradition of neighborliness between president and fraternity brothers. So I'm really looking forward to living across the street. And if you want to see, if you're interested in watching wealthy old people, you can just stand in front of your fraternity and you'll see what they look like as they come in and out of the presidential home, hopefully as they exit with less money than they entered, prior, to that. So I think that this is going to be a wonderful collaboration for the university. And I'm particularly proud and happy that it is Phi Gamma Delta that will be the first fraternity. By the way, I was very nervous when I heard it was you, because I had to look back. There's a secret. You know, Paul Gallagher knows just about every one of my secrets. He and I have worked together here since before there was dirt. I was involved when I was, a sophomore in school in coming into a party in an unorthodox way. Most of the people come in through the door. I thought it'd be kind of neat to come in through the windows. So we had this big campus mixer at MIT where I went to school, and we thought it'd be sort of cute to get a ladder and to enter through the windows and then jump in. Now, we were caught by one of the organizers of the party, and he happened to be a member of a fraternity on campus, Sigma Phi Epsilon. Phi Beta Epsilon at MIT. And the fraternity invited me to become a member, and there were 37 members. 36 voted yes and 1 voted no, and I did not become a member of the fraternity. So I said, my God, I can't believe it's these same guys again. When I saw the Phi, then I realized that no, this is not. I am sure this group, notwithstanding my minor transgression, would have allowed me the opportunity to become a member and to be a brother of such distinguished leaders as Ron Schofield and Kirk Landon. But I'm really pleased that it is this fraternity that is beginning the process of fraternity life and campus fraternities here at FIU. Why? Because you stand for what the university is all about, and that is academics. I realize that this group is superior academically, and that is what we're here to do. We also have, obviously, many other impacts on a young person's life. The relationships you'll develop here, the relationships you'll develop with other members of the student body are fundamental, athletics, many other things. But I'm so delighted that through your presence on campus, you are emphasizing what really is most valued, most sacred, most important to us, and that is academic performance. And I know that when I'm invited here and I go to a party here, that every brother will be in good standing and that every brother will be an example for the entire university in terms of their academic achievement. So I am looking forward to becoming your neighbor. It's about, you know, as Ron said, it's about 4 or 5, 6 weeks, 6 weeks away. And I hope as soon as I get in that we'll have a little party, you know, just for my fraternity brother neighbors. We're not going to do this for every fraternity. We'll just do it for this one. So, we no liquor, of course. So we're thrilled that you're here, and we want to give our thanks to all of you that have been in leadership positions here. I want to thank Ashley for his leadership as a graduate student. I want to thank again Ron, and I want to thank Kirk. It is through your generosity that we stand here before you today, and you're an example to many generations of FIU students and FIU supporters for the future. So thank you very much to all of you.
You're a good start down here too. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mitch. We'll be over there with apple pies as soon as you move in. You know, Mitch has a vision, but somebody has to carry out that vision. And the Vice President of Student Affairs Office is the group that was charged with that responsibility of not only finding a location, but all of the myriad of details that go into arranging for something like this to happen. And the person's office who that fell under is none other than a Vice President of Student Affairs, Patricia Tellier-Servin. Tellier-Servin has been just an unbelievable supporter as well. Lots of meetings, lots of phone calls, helping us through all those little unknowns that we didn't think about until we were the week before. So Patricia has also had her mark on this house and will forever be remembered by our organization as being one of those who made this all possible. So Patricia, please come up and have a few words for us.
Welcome to the neighborhood. Where are the brothers? Can I see where you are? Hey, there you are. Well, let me tell you a secret. I have an indirect affiliation with this fraternity. It just so happens that my father-in-law is a Fiji. And I was talking to him the other night, and I was telling him about how excited we were about this home, and he said, let me tell you, that is the best fraternity to have on campus. And to tell you the truth, I agree wholeheartedly. So welcome to the neighborhood. I can also tell you that you're going to have a lot of fun with your neighbor across the street. First of all, I do want to extend my gratitude to Kirk Landon, not only for your vision, but certainly for your generosity. And Ron, I can tell you that I am in awe of you, your dedication, the time that you spent on this campus to ensure a fabulous facility. I mean, it's hard to compare what you've done to this house, but also for this institution. So I want to thank you for that. FIU is about developing leaders, and certainly leaders with a strong academic preparation. Now, certainly you have become leaders. You're the first to break ground. You're the first to open a house for your brothers. But I also want to make sure that you continue that tradition of being leaders. You are the first of several houses, and what I want to challenge you to do is to continue to be leaders. You have to uphold a certain number of values that I think are just wonderful, and I hope you do that. I hope that we can be very proud of you. We want you here. We want more brothers here and other fraternities. So as you move in, as you begin to live here daily, I want to make sure that you understand the values that we uphold here at this institution. They certainly coincide with what you believe in, and I hope that you can be leaders for the rest of the houses that will come very soon after you. I want you to know that you have our support, continued support, and that if there's anything that you need from us, we're just almost a block away. Welcome again. I hope this is a very successful year for you. I know that Rush is about to come up, and I hope you fill your house with very dedicated leaders for this institution and for our community. Thank you so much.
Probably the first person that I really had a lot of contact with was John Bonanno. John is the Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs. John and I started, as Paul Gallagher can tell you, over by the stadium. And then we were going to have a house over there at one point. Then we were going to go up to the north end of the campus and be up near 8th Street. And John, we moved around a lot. We had a lot of conversations about what was best for the Greek system as a whole. And I think that what John brought to us was absolutely the best location that we could have found. So John Bonanno, please come up. We want to hear what you have to say too.
I'm not a very tall person, so I'll try to keep my comments short. This is a very momentous occasion, I think, for FIU in terms of obviously this being the first fraternity house that we've built. And as such, it'll start a new chapter in the history of FIU, and a chapter that we all will be proud of. It'll also set the stage for all the other fraternities who will be building chapters here on campus, and all the others that will follow those after those are built. But let me personally say it's been a pleasure working with the alumni, in particular Ron Sheffield, who I think has done a tremendous job in terms of getting this project underway. I'd personally like to give him a show of appreciation. I've also called Ron all different times of the day, and he's called me right back or been available, so I know he's devoted a lot of time to this. I'd like to also thank Mr. Kirk Landon for his generosity. One thing we have in common, we're both Georgia Tech students. I was there myself and worked there for a while. Good school. In closing, I'd like to say that the first step has been taken with the house being built. And the next step is for the house to set an example for a living learning facility. And let me repeat, a living learning facility that both the university and Phi Gamma Delta will be proud of, and also a facility that all of the groups will be proud of as well and attempt to emulate. Good luck in your efforts.
You know, there's a guy back there in the back that's awfully quiet tonight. Paul Gallagher. Paul is the Executive Vice President of Business and Finance. He's the guy that makes sure that all the bills get paid around here. And Paul, we know how involved you've been behind the scenes and up front a few times to help us through a couple of hurdles as well. But Paul Gallagher, would you please come up here? I want to give you one of these mementos that we're handing out. Also, I want everybody to see you. You want to say a word here, just a thank you to all your team that's helped us?
Yeah, I would like to just thank everybody, in particular Kurt, and tell you a story. A couple years ago, Kurt came to me with another colleague of yours and said, I want to build a fraternity house on campus. And I said, that's great, we want to do that too. And I said, which one? He said, Phi Gamma Delta. And I said, that's great, let's get it organized. Where are the guys? He said, we don't have one on campus. So he went out and got a fraternity and a fraternity house. So Kurt, we really are indebted to you for being really the trailblazer for FIU, you and all your colleagues. So thank you very much.
You know, we had a few other folks that were here, but they had to go to some other campus activities. Mark Rosenberg, provost at the university, has been, again, so helpful. Karen Katz and Todd Sullivan were here earlier. Tonight is beginning of recruitment for the sororities on campus, so they had to go to that. I think, Todd, did you get away too? Is Todd still here? I know that they both had to go to that, but I wanted to at least mention their names because they've been so involved, as well as Larry Lunsford back in the very beginning. Larry's out coaching one of his kids' teams tonight, I think. Is that right, John? And Ruth Hamilton. We've had support from every corner of the university, and I can't thank you, Mitch, again for the kind of people you have working out here, because obviously that reflects on each one of you as you've hired new people. They are quality people and have really helped us to make this possible. So thank you again for letting me make these presentations.
Well, during those last few speeches and presentations, I made sure to get out there a little bit and watch what was going on here from your point of view. And I tell you, being able to look up there and see those Greek letters on the house and see all this going on, it really brought it home to me, you know, the importance of this as Fijis, what this is like for us. It's just a remarkable experience. At this point, we'd now like to bring up to the podium Pete Dunn to say a few words about the generosity of one of our graduate brothers here in Miami.
Six years ago, the International Fraternity called up Kirk Landon, who was then chairman of the board of American Bankers Insurance Group, and gave him a challenge, said, we're looking to expand our fraternity in the South Florida area. Well, Kirk took on that challenge and called together a bunch of the graduates from the South Florida area in a way that only Kirk Landon could do. Just demanded us to be there. And we got our group together. We put together some research. We looked at all the other institutions, all the institutions in South Florida, and said, where's the perfect place for a Fiji House? And unanimously, we chose Florida International University. It was certainly the perfect environment to enrich what we have to offer, and it was an obvious choice. Well, that was 6 years ago. 2.5 years later, we had a colony through all the hard work of the graduate brothers. 3 years after that, we have a fraternity house. We've thanked a lot of people here today, and it's well-earned thanks from all of us to all of you for all of your hard work. But there's no one to thank more than Mr. Kirk Landon. It was Kirk's inspiration and Kirk's motivation that kept the fire burning, and all the graduate brothers that put in all the late-night oil to make this thing happen. It was his motivation to keep the colonists going, to generate more bodies and more guys and more quality guys into this fraternity. It was without his vision, generosity, and tenacity, we would not be standing here today, no question. Okay. As a small token of our appreciation, Kirk, we hereby dedicate this building in your name as the R. Kirk Landon FIJI House. We prominently have displayed a plaque inside. I invite you all to see, but I'm going to read you the inscription right now. The R. Kirk Landon FIJI House, the International Fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta, is deeply indebted to R. Kirk Landon for his inspiration, tenacity, and generosity in the founding of a Fiji Brotherhood at Florida International University. Brother Landon received Phi Gamma Delta's highest honor in 1997 when his fellow Fijis bestowed upon him the Distinguished Fiji Award for his contributions to his fraternity, for his extensive philanthropic work in South Florida, and for his consistency in exhibiting the 5 values of Phi Gamma Delta: friendship, knowledge, service, morality, excellence. Due to his leadership, Phi Gamma Delta was the first Greek organization to build a home on the FIU campus, thus contributing to the educational mission of the university and the development of its student community. Phi Gamma Delta, not for college days alone. Kirk, we also have this small memento of our groundbreaking that you can take with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you've done.
Great. Well, I'm a bit overcome, and I'm not usually quiet, as all the pledges know and as all the brothers know. I think the cooperation that we've had from the FIU personnel in building this house and starting this fraternity has been absolutely outstanding. And I want to thank you, Mitch, and all of the people that you work with really for an outstanding job. One of the Fiji sayings is, "Not for college days alone." And it's a great privilege that I have of being able to give back a little bit that I got out of my fraternity when I was at Georgia Tech. You know, a lot of the leadership principles that I learned there I used later in the Navy and later in business, and they were very successful. And so it's nice to see all these young brothers here today, and I know that what they're going to get out of this house and this fraternity will be paid back many, many times to this community, to this university, and to the whole world. There are a couple of things I want to particularly emphasize that have been said, but I just want to put my 2 cents in. Number one, scholarship is the most important thing. This house will be above the men's average, period. And we may have to take pledges and actives kicking and screaming into study hall and so forth until they get there. But this will be one of the outstanding scholarship areas in the university. Number two, this will be a non-substance house. There'll be no drinking in this house, period. And all of us that have had fraternity experiences can remember the great times at parties, and we know that that has done more to ruin the fraternity system than anything else that's happened. And the houses and the chapters now around the country with Phi Gamma Delta and elsewhere that are going non-alcohol, non-substance, are moving on the upscale. And that's exactly what this house at FIU will do. So I'm proud of all the brothers. I'm proud of the fantastic job that Ron and everybody else did. I'm real proud to be a Fiji. And I'm glad to be able to have the money to be able to put it in the future, which you see out there. Thank you.
And now lastly, ladies and gentlemen, if we could have all of the brothers of Phi Gamma Delta, all the pledges, all the currently initiated undergraduate brothers and all the graduate brothers out on this front walkway to surround Kirk and to watch the lighting of our letters. As I mentioned earlier, the Greek letters of Phi Gamma Delta are something that means something very, very special to us. And so now this moment, like I alluded to earlier, is something that's so very special to all of us as Fijis, and we're very pleased that all of you can be here to share in it with us. We're about to light up the letters in the house, so if we could have all the brothers standing beside Kirk to give us a countdown, at which time we'll then say, "Mighty proud to be a Fiji," and then we will see the letters lit up. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. After we light up the letters, you're all then welcome inside for refreshments. And we'd also like to thank our Mary McCarty Club, who's providing all of the refreshments and the finger food inside. Mary McCarty Club is the Mothers Club or the Parents Club. All of our parents and mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and grandmothers who help us out so much in making this a reality. Particularly, we'd like to thank Michelle Bond and Diana Rivas as well, who did so much work in helping this evening as well. So if we can get a countdown, brothers, and then we'll light up the letters.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mighty proud to be a Fiji.
Well, Dan, let me ask you, you've dealt mostly with the FIU kids, with the Fiji kids. How important do you think that this house is for their growth as kids into men?
I think it's very important. They have, that's one of the reasons why I liked when you guys were around, because I wanted you guys to understand what went into this and what the guys had to do to put this together and get a kind of a feel for, you know, what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, being older than you guys and being adults, and that what you would be responsible for. You want to speak too? And I think that's the most important part, is you guys get to deal with the responsibility of this place now that it's completed. And hopefully you'll take it on and do a good job with it.
Angel Reyes, you're a member of another fraternity other than this one on the FIU campus. How do you think that this fraternity house will impact the other fraternities on this campus?
It'll impact them in a positive way. I mean, it gives them something more tangible to look at. As for Greek housing, it's like finally broke ground at FIU. So for other fraternities are actually looking to make houses, I mean, it's very impressive. It does a very good job. And actually, to bring unity also, we have a lot of other Greeks here from different fraternities also visiting. So it's going to help Greek unity also. So.
Do you see this not only bring unity, but bringing any rivalry between the fraternities?
No, actually, I think it'll pull away from it because all the Greek system now is based on sports. Putting houses and everything into it's a lot more responsibility. So people are going to pull away from sports and actually, you know, it makes you kind of grow up in a sense. So I think it's going to pull away from the whole rivalry sense that we have to deal with now.
What do you think about the alcohol-free policy that this fraternity is taking up?
That one's a little tough. In a sense that they do have a point when it comes to GPAs and everything. It does hurt fraternity members or college students when alcohol is involved. But in a sense, they're college students that drink. So it's gonna be tough. But yeah, it's respectable. The point's there.
Ronald Ray, you are a pledge of the fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta. How do you think this will affect your scholarly endeavors into the university?
Actually, I think it's a very big help. All the brothers around me are always pulling for me to do good in school, get the high GPA, get a scholarship. Everybody's pulling for me, and everybody else is pulling for everybody else.
You don't see fraternity housing as a distraction towards your school?
No, actually, it brings me closer to school. I'll be around here more. If I need a break, I'll come over here. We can have study groups, maybe in the living room, or it brings you closer to the school.
What do you feel is the most important aspect that the house is bringing to the fraternity and bringing to you?
Brotherhood. I've actually been to other chapters where they do have houses, and just the amount of closeness that everybody has there is amazing, and just everybody comes no matter what, you know, any time of the night, just, oh, let's go to the Fiji House, hang out, and you know, everything's always going on there.
Fraternity House will improve your son's quality of life, your son being a member of the fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta?
I do not know very much about fraternity. It's not a tradition in my country. But I've noticed an improvement in Eric's social behavior. He's a lot more active nowadays and more dedicated to his studies, actually. So.
Do you feel that social development is as important as the scholastic development during the college years?
Yeah, actually throughout life, I believe so.
And how do you feel about the alcohol policy, the alcohol-free policy, I should say, that Phi Gamma Delta has taken up?
You mean alcohol here is free? I want some. No, really. I approve of it. I do not believe that drugs of any sort has a place in an academic setting. It shouldn't be here, and I applaud that.
Do you have any worries that this house will, any worries as far as what this house will bring to the responsibilities of your son?
The only information I had about fraternity is what I saw in movies down in Brazil, and that was really shocking, really scary. But the reality I have experienced through you, Casper, John, my son, has shown me that it's only stereotypical, it's not real, it's just perception. I have nothing to worry about. I really feel very, very comfortable and confident.
As a parent of a brother of Phi Gamma Delta, or a brother of the Delta colony of Phi Gamma Delta, how important do you think that fraternity housing is for the development of your son?
I think it's very important. Since I'm speaking with my son right now, I think it helps for brotherhood, growth. I also feel very strongly that you learn to live with people and you make lifelong friends. Moms and dads aren't always going to be here, and you need those brothers, both the older brothers and the younger ones coming in, and that should always be established and give back to them.
What sort of obstacles do you see that the sons of all these parents will have to encounter when moving into a house, when living out of home for the first time?
Oh, I think those obstacles are typical. You're going to have to learn to do laundry, keep up your house, respect your property, respect one another, and beyond that, have a great time, but don't forget the academics. That's what you're here for.
Those things such as respect for property and the other things that you touched on, do you think that can be learned in a classroom?
Do I think that can be learned in a classroom? No, I think you have to have a full experience of life. Having the opportunity to do budget, have an opportunity to manage your time, have an opportunity to...
be a house mother.
No, I will not be the house mother either. I have raised 5 boys. So it would just be a continuation of my job. But I do think it's very good for everyone to learn how to deal with conflict. I think it's good for you to get back into the community as a house and do for others. If you're at home, you're going to have a tendency to stay in your cocoon. You need to let your wings and go and develop and fly off.
How do you feel about the alcohol-free policy that Phi Gamma Delta has adopted?
I think it's the best thing that's ever happened. I love it, and I think that should be with every fraternity and sorority. There's no reason to drink.
I've been a member of Phi Gamma Delta since this fall semester of 1998, and since then I've served in many positions in Phi Gamma Delta. I've served as treasurer, historian, I've served as social chair, philanthropy chairs, intramurals chairs, various other positions in the fraternity, yes.
How do you feel about this whole new project? I mean, building the whole house, building, is this an advanced, project for the university and for the organization?
Well, without a doubt, it's a big responsibility for the organization as well as a great asset. We have a lot of things that we can do now that we have a house, a lot of things that we can accomplish now that we have a house, things that will surpass us, make us more well-rounded leaders in the Greek system of FIU, and as well as for FIU, it begins the foundation for increased student life in the university by, like many of the administrators have said, making a more traditional kind of university, making it more of a student life 24 hours a day, giving people a reason to stay on campus and raise school spirit. I think it's a great asset to the university in a variety of ways.
Gentlemen, how did you think it went today?
Couldn't have been better. It was a fantastic experience, and the rain held it away just in time.
Wasn't that something?
We're timing's everything.
We're doing something right, aren't we?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me ask you, why was FIU the subject for this event and to build this house in this new university?
Well, FIU, we looked around to a bunch of different universities in the area, and FIU was prime for the growth of what we were trying to do. They were very, very supportive in every aspect of what we tried to do here, as far as generating chapter and generating student life and building a house, of course, which was our ultimate goal of putting this whole thing together. They have supported it every aspect from every realm and every reach of the university has chipped in to make the experience a pleasant one for us, creating a chapter together and putting a house together. They really made it all work. It's the perfect environment, supportive environment to help us unfold this magical plan that we put together.
Who was the one actually involved in the plan and the involvement of the idea of everything, just since the beginning?
Well, I guess to answer that question completely, we'd have to go all the way back to 1848, over 150 years ago, when 6 gentlemen at Jefferson College up in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, founded this great institution to advance the intelligence of undergraduate students of the day and to seek to improve them in the arts of life, in the arts of social development, of moral development, and improving their student communities, themselves as individuals, and the greater society as a whole. That's really where this started, and ever since then, over 153 years, that idea, the strength of that idea is really what has kept this organization, this institution, continuing on to greater and greater success, to over 115 chapters now across the United States and Canada. So that's really where you have to go to talk about this at the beginning.
Yeah, you also came from Canada. I mean, it's a huge organization. I can see, from it takes all the universities, all the colleges that this organization is.
Sure does. This is an international fraternity. The diversity of our membership here in Miami is incredible, but when you think about the fact that this is just one corner of what Phi Gamma Delta represents. This is the southeasternmost point of Phi Gamma Delta, and I come from the northernmost chapter. And in between, I can tell you, I've seen so many different incredible people that I've met. Some here in Miami that I've been inspired by and that I emulate. to a large degree, and so many others that I've met at chapters all in between. The power of this idea of Phi Gamma Delta is really that, the idea of brotherhood wherein we inspire each other, we learn from each other, we support each other, and that's why we continue to succeed 153 years down the road.
I would like to ask you a question. How are you involved in this whole process?
I'm involved from the perspective of overseeing the 5 chapters and colonies in the state of Florida. I'm the section chief. So I oversee Jacksonville University, University of Florida, FSU in Tallahassee, University of Central Florida in Orlando, and this colony here in Miami. And so it's a great experience to see the diversity here versus the other chapters in Florida, but also to see the enthusiasm, the emotion, and the excitement about getting something started afresh here in Miami, and I think it makes it very, very special.
How many colonies are they in the whole
United States?
Yeah, United States.
Now, I believe we have 5 colonies in the process right now, and each one of them is in a different state of being upgraded to a full-fledged chapter. They go through a petitioning process. They need to have a certain number of members. They need to demonstrate certain things before they're able to be upgraded to a full chapter status. So this colony here at FIU is doing extremely well, as you can see around you. And I think with another good solid rush this fall, I think that there's every reason to believe that this colony can petition to become a full-fledged chapter.
I pledged during my junior year in college. I think it's going to be a great opportunity, for me to grow as an individual towards the end of my collegiate career, my undergraduate career. It was a great experience throughout. Just being inside this house is a dream come true.
Are you a new member?
Yes, I'm a brother. I'm a graduate brother of the colony. And this house is just one step closer to the dream that we've had since the Alpha class. I was in the second class of receiving our charter and becoming a full-fledged brother in the fraternity. It's something that I can't wait for. And every time I pass by this house on my way to work or just down 8th Street or 107th Avenue, just see this house. It's just like a symbol of the work that everybody has put into it, and it's just a dream becoming a reality.
I think my next question is, you mentioned the computer outlets and privacy, and I think part of that goes for helping a student study. And how important is it for a student to have fraternity housing for a scholastic career?
How important is it?
Is fraternity housing for his scholastic career?
I think the idea of scholarship, and you certainly heard it in the opening remarks of the people who spoke, is that the fraternity system in general throughout this country, I think you will find that the all men's averages usually are much higher in fraternities than they are for the general population. And there's a reason for that. Is because fraternities with their members can insist on a scholarship and buckling down to make the grade and to make it happen. And when you have a university certainly not the size of FIU, but Florida as an example, I don't know how many students they have now, maybe 60,000 students. The thing about the fraternity is that it allows you to get close to a fewer number and have real friends where it might be a bit more difficult with a student body with those kind of numbers. So the fraternity and sorority systems seem to work very well in large universities.
How do you feel about the alcohol-free policy that Phi Gamma Delta has adopted?
Well, there is no other way to go. Again, as part of the changing of attitudes of the fraternities, all fraternities, not just Phi Gamma Delta. Phi Gamma Delta was one of the first fraternities who made it a national policy. So it's not just local, it's not just FIU or Florida or any of the other local colleges, universities, but in the case of our fraternity, it's a national policy. So obviously one that has to be adhered to, and is. So we think that's a very important step forward in terms of all the numerous problems that you read about and hear about, which are indeed sad. Whatever the fraternity, if you read a newspaper article about abuse of alcohol and sometimes tragic consequences of those actions, it hurts the entire fraternity system. So it's not just our fraternity, but it's all fraternities who are moving in that direction.
This is Kirk Landon, a founder, or the founder of the Phi Gamma Delta colony at FIU. And a couple of the questions that are on people's minds are, why, out of all the kind things you could have done, why did you devote so much effort and resources to Phi Gamma Delta here at FIU?
Well, I am a graduate, of course, of a Phi Gamma Delta fraternity, and when we decided to build an undergraduate chapter, we decided FIU was by far the best place to have it. So that made that decision. And then once you decided to have a chapter, then if you don't have a house, the chapter has a great deal of problems really building morale and getting good stewardship and good scholarship, etc. So we decided to build a house.
You mentioned scholarship. Do you see a house being integral to the scholarship of fraternity students?
Yes. Basically because you force the members of the fraternity to study.
Do you see social development as important as academic development in the college years?
I think academic development is really what you have to stress in the college years. They'll get enough social development before, during, and after college.
What do you remember most about your college years with Phi Gamma Delta?
The ability to develop many leadership traits that followed me in my career.